Thank you for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America. The topic today, economic and racial equality for women and girls. And with us to lead us through some ways of achieving this equality is Dr. Dara Richardson-Heron, CEO of the YWCA, a billion-dollar nonprofit, the 25th largest in the United States, and at the ripe old age of 158 years old. That's the Y, not you, right? Dara is, this young person leading this ancient organization, this esteemed organization to greater heights. Thanks so much for being here today.
It's truly a pleasure to be here, Carol. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've been following your career for some years now, and at every step have been saying, she's terrific, she's going to do wonderful things in this world, and here you are with an organization that has taken on, and I must say that I didn't realize that all along, its goal was ending segregation, ending racism.
Yes, that's right, Carol. Our organization, really since the inception of the organization, has been focused on eliminating racism and empowering women. We, as early as the 1800s, we have been out there putting together systems and programs designed to make sure that women have what they need to achieve success. Things like housing, when they were seeking employment at a time when women were not in the workplace. Childcare, affordable, high-quality childcare, so that women can be comfortable knowing that their children are safe and being educated while they're in the workplace. We also have been involved in racial justice for a long time. I mean, some of our facilities were the first desegregated facilities in the South. Our organization fought and achieved desegregation in some of our associations long before desegregation.
Right. Well, in doing the research and reading all about you, I said, I hadn't, for my generation, the Y was the place where you stayed while you had your first job because you couldn't afford any place else. And you could find a room at the Y.
But we're so much more than that. And we refer to ourselves as the YWCA because yes. I think the other organization calls themselves the Y. But we really have been out there providing services and supports for women, girls, and families for over 150 years. And we're still doing it.
Well, it's incredible. But I want to find out about you, how you got to this place, because you're running a billion-dollar organization now. We always ask our guests to tell us about their lives in Black America, where you were in Black America as a child, where you were born, and your earliest influences. And this is Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, actually I grew up in Oklahoma City. Yeah. My parents were both born and raised in Oklahoma City. I have 3 sisters, 2 older and 1 younger. Really, our family on both sides were in Oklahoma City, and it was a wonderful place to grow up because we were the first grandchildren on my mother's side of the family, and we had a host of aunts, uncles, cousins, and people who just really, really created that village for us that ensured our achievement and our success. And then that's been not just from our family, but from our teachers, from our church members. I mean, there were so many people who were dedicated to our success that if we stepped off the track, we would be put right back on it very, very quickly.
Right.
And I, grew up in a home environment where my mom stayed at home. She was the CEO of our home. And really, we had a home team. I mean, everyone had roles and responsibilities and chores. And my dad actually was a CPA. He worked at Western Electric and then later became AT&T. And really, family values, morals, ethics, making sure that we made life better for others. Those were things that were very, very important to our family. And they instilled it in all of us. And also, the importance of education and always exceeding expectations. And
I love the way you refer to it as Team Richardson. It really was. Everybody had their role. Your mom was CEO and everybody else fell in line.
That's right. And we were 4 girls and my poor dad, we really had a women's rights group right there. If we
Early feminists.
If we could get our mom on our team, my dad didn't stand a chance. But it was a great environment to grow up in because, my dad made it clear and my mom made it clear to all of us that we should never be limited by our race or our gender. And that's kind of
and in fact, they were able to create that kind of environment for you out of the home where you did not feel
they did. That was my lens.
Somehow imprisoned in blackness and in not succeeding and not having the same opportunities and not so even when you stepped out of the home, you were able to enjoy life as a full human being, as a full child, as a
Absolutely. That was our lens. I mean, we didn't know anything differently. That was our lens. And so when we went out into the world, we didn't expect anything different, nor did we tolerate anything different.
And you knew from a very early age that you wanted to be a doctor. So
I did.
How old were you? 2, 4?
My parents say that I was, at the age of 2, I declared that I wanted to be a doctor. And of course, they thought that was a great thing. So they nurtured that and they actually, bought me my doctor's kit and let me work on them. And not only did I want to be a doctor, my parents say that I wanted to lead the household at age 2.
Yeah, you were bucking for mom's CEO position.
Absolutely,
even, right.
Absolutely.
That's tremendous.
But fortunately, they helped me understand that I wasn't quite ready. I wasn't literally nor figuratively out of diapers. And so instead of, curtailing my leadership abilities, they helped hone them and make me feel very comfortable in my role, but helped me understand that I wasn't quite ready to lead yet.
But you ultimately went to medical school.
I did.
So you followed your 2-year-old dream.
That's right.
But then decided that you wanted to have a larger impact, and then looked for a way to combine the medical degree with serving the public, and it led you through several organizations, but brought you to the Y.
That's right. I actually, I pretty much always knew that I wanted to be or have an impact much larger than I could in a typical medical practice. And also when I was training, the medical landscape was changing dramatically. But I talked to one of my mentors and sponsors, if you will, who, provided me with an opportunity to get into occupational medicine, which is something that, I, back in that day, and I know I'm dating myself, but I couldn't Google it to see what it was back in those days. I had to actually go to the library.
The demarcation line.
Yeah, well, but I had to actually go to the library
Right.
and figure out what it was. And
Right.
what that allowed me to do was to combine my skills and experience and expertise as a physician and also work in a corporate environment. So I learned the business skills, the human resources skills, and how to run an organization. And it was just a wonderful experience. And that, I did for about 14 years. And then, in that experience, I was promoted because of some of the accomplishments. And I, got involved with the CEO, and that was at Con
Right.
Edison, the electric company.
Right.
And that was great.
Yeah.
But the further I got away from medicine, people making a difference in the lives of others, the more disenchanted I became. I mean, after all, I am a doctor, and I want to make life better for others. So I was, recruited to an opportunity to lead United Cerebral Palsy, a wonderful organization where I provided cognitive and provided medical services for
Sure.
people with cognitive and physical disabilities. And I just started on this trail of, advocacy for people with disabilities, advocacy for people with health conditions. I led Susan G. Komen. And then I had my own personal experience with breast cancer early on in my life. And that really changed me. It changed me in a way such that I realized I no longer wanted to just have a job. I wanted to be making a difference. I wanted to use whatever time I have left on this earth to make it a better place. And so each of my successive jobs after Con Edison just continued on that trajectory. So when you look at it going forward, it looks one way, but in my view, going backward, it all makes total sense.
Well, and the YWCA is extremely lucky to have you in a leadership position now. I want to go through some of the things because you said that actually the YWCA back in 1946 it had made its commitment to ending segregation, which is, 20 years before the Civil Rights Movement, and
right.
so right there in that forefront. But now you have clearly stated again that eliminating racism and empowering women are what the YWCA is about.
That's
and you've
exactly
talked about the obstacles that you see to that. I'm going to go through several of them. There are 5 that you've defined.
At least 5.
At least 5. But, when the New York Times and Forbes and Fortune and all interview you as a leading, administrator in your leadership role, and I want to talk about that again a little bit later in the show. But let's go through this list of things, the obstacles. Economic instability. How does the YWCA attack that kind of obstacle for women and girls in the United States?
Well, first, let me start by saying about 76% of the people we serve in our facilities are at or below the poverty line. That is an enormous number of people. And what we try to do is provide them with the skills, the knowledge, the expertise, so that they can actually have a higher wage and achieve a better life. We advocate for paid leave. We advocate for increases in the minimum wage for these workers. We also promote STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math education, so that women have an opportunity to have higher paying jobs. We attack it on multiple fronts, both from a programmatic aspect, from an educational aspect, and also from a public policy and advocacy aspect.
So you're down in Washington with the other organizations
That's right.
saying something has got to be done. Now, racial inequality. I mean, the Ford Foundation. We interviewed Darren Walker on our first show, and it's his goal to eliminate this inequity in the United States. Based on race. So what's your take on that? What can the Y do?
Well, we actually have to come to grips with the fact that, we don't live in a post-racist society. We know that at the YWCA. We see it every day. We see it in the lives of the children and the women that we see. We see it in everything we do. So what we attempt to do at the YWCA is, again, impact legislation that is detrimental to people of color, like the End Racial Profiling Act. We need to stop police violence. We need to stop racial profiling. We need to also make sure that our young women and our girls have access to education. Many of the women and girls that we serve are in under-resourced schools that even if they wanted to take advanced placement classes, they don't exist. There is racism in how young women are treated in the juvenile justice system. We try to attack that through our restorative justice programs, really focusing on the root causes of some of the problems that these children are facing, as opposed to punishing them for acting out behaviors. We try to impact the school to prison pipeline, the sexual abuse to prison pipeline. So many women of color and young girls of color are impacted by sexual abuse before they reach 18. So when we see some of them acting out in schools, we recognize that this isn't just them acting out. They're acting out because they are dealing with trauma. And so we advocate for trauma-informed care in the schools, meaning people who are knowledgeable, teachers, individuals who know or care enough about these young girls. Like I described, I had a whole village of people who cared about me, and when they saw I was a little off, they asked me what was wrong. Some of these girls don't have that. At the YWCA, we try to create that cocoon, that nest, if you will, for these young girls so that they can get to the root of whatever problems they're facing, and we can hopefully put them on a better track for their lives.
Right, and talk a little bit more about the violence against women and girls. This is a lot that gets skipped over, missed, and this is what's leading to a lot of the trouble with girls actually winding up being a huge proportion of jailed persons in this country.
That's right. 1 in 4. Some studies say 1 in 4, some people say 1 in 3. Women will be impacted by violence in their lives. It is just pervasive, and it's irrespective of your race, your socioeconomic status. I mean, it exists. And to me, that comes from a misogyny, people, understanding, or men, and it's majority men, feeling that they can be violent against women. And the sad thing and how we impact that is financial empowerment, or the lack thereof, is one of the reasons why women more often than not have to stay in these situations. They stay in the situations for themselves because often they have to make the untenable decision as to whether they're going to stay in an abusive environment or be homeless with their children. We have our organization, you may or may not know, is the largest provider of domestic violence services in the United States. And when I go into our facilities and I see these women and children, many of them with nothing but the clothes on their backs, they've left an environment, but they know that they don't have the financial stability to, make a better life for themselves. And that's where we try to come in. But this violence against women is very pervasive. It's pervasive here in the U.S., it's pervasive globally, and it's got to end.
And talk to us next about the availability of health care, because this is also, women are dying earlier.
That's right.
And girls are not getting the kind of care that they need. So how does the Y step in as advocate?
Yeah, well, many of our YWCAs have health-related programming, whether it's preventive training in the big areas such as cardiovascular disease, breast cancer, which in fact the YWCA was one of the first programs to have what we called an encore program to deal with women post-mastectomy, to make sure that they got the exercises and the treatments that they need. But we have preventive health programs around HIV and AIDS in some of our YWCA programs. We also still, some of our YWCAs, even though we're a social justice organization, many of them still have the swimming pools and fitness centers that people knew about us from long ago.
Sure.
Again, we are now social justice, social change, but we at the YWCA really advocate not just for health and safety for women as it relates to the chronic diseases, but mental health as well. As I described, young girls, making sure that the schools have social workers to deal with some of the trauma that they're facing. So we attack it again on just about every level. And we have 225 YWCAs across the nation in 46 states and the District of Columbia. And each of them are involved in 3 areas that we focus on, and health and safety is one of them.
And now I also see that you are concerned about the United States status in the world, being concerned about women. It's scandalous, that we haven't signed on to CEDAW. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the United States is now one of 7 countries that has not signed on to the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. We call it CEDAW. Come on, what's wrong? What's going on with that? And also, that's a global treaty that would provide equal protection for women, but we in the United States haven't even signed on to the Equal Rights Amendment. Most people think that women have equal protection under the law and our Constitution, but we don't. What is that about? That is, to me, it's just unbelievable when you think of the egregious nature that women are not created or thought of as equal under our highest level of the law. I just find that to be unacceptable on so many levels. And I think that should be, a starting point, because if we impact that legislation, then it will be much more difficult for people to have a gender wage gap, much more difficult for perpetrators to get away with some of the violent acts that they commit against women. But if we live in a country where women are not created as equal, I think that's a sad commentary.
And I agree with you on that, and that's one of my projects as well, working on getting the ERA passed. Yeah. I want to talk to you because you're often interviewed about your leadership skills and about what it takes especially for a Black woman to be the head of a major operation, organization, company, whatever. And you talk about tailwinds and headwinds. That's an interesting concept. Tell us a little bit about that. Tailwinds, I guess, are the ones that are supposed to throw you into motion?
Well, for me, a tailwind is the support that I received, the encouragement, the nurturing I received from my parents, who were my first role models, who really gave me a lens that I could achieve whatever I wanted to achieve. The teachers, the mentors, the people like you who have been out there at the forefront, a trailblazer, so that I could see what opportunities there are for women of color.
Parents used to put her in front of the TV, right, when she was a child, right? I had a great influence. But I do take full credit for your success, as I tell you.
As well you should. I mean, truly, Carol. I mean, when I came to New York in 1985, you were one of the most beautiful faces on television, but you weren't just beautiful. There was substance, there was content, the way that you dealt with the issues. It was so refreshing for me. And this isn't, a commercial, but it's a reality because, people say you can't be what you can't see. You provided that for so many women, not just me. And you should take credit for it.
Well, and now you're doing the same thing.
I hope so.
And so what kind of advice, now those headwinds, talk a little bit about that.
The headwinds are those naysayers, the nasty, duplicitous people who try to, throw stones at you just because they can't reach you, the people who don't commit to your success, the companies, the organizations that don't promote women or women of color, or don't give you the opportunities despite the fact that you have the credentials, the everyday aggravations that many people don't even know that women of color face. I mean, every single day, I put it out of my mind, but I will be honest with you, just about every single day, there's something that happens to help me realize that I am a woman and I am a woman of color. But I push those things away because I feel like I have a bigger calling in my life.
So how do you keep your balance? Because if you're at your position, if you're saying that still every single day you're reminded that you're a black woman and somehow have to fight for your place in the company, in the world.
That's right. I do. And how do I keep my balance? First of all, I'm a woman of faith. I believe that I have been put on this earth to make a difference in the lives of others. Certainly after my life-changing experience, I realized that I have limited time to do what I believe I was put on this earth to do. It's kind of a passion. It's a calling for me. So whenever I get derailed, I think about, why am I here? Why did God allow me to be born? And why did he keep me on this earth? And my feeling on that is he kept me on this earth because I have something to offer, and through me, others will benefit.
A news release came across my desk just yesterday, and I said, how timely. I'm talking with Dara tomorrow about the response that you got for the Stand Against Racism. And I think this is one of the sort of being reminded every single day that you're a black woman and you have to deal with it in some way.
Right.
You had set aside for the Stand Against Violence week young girls of color, and you asked them to send in their stories to the Y. Tell us a little bit about that. And
Yeah, we have every April, we have a Stand Against Racism event, and ours is coming up in just a few days. I encourage people to go to our website, standagainstracism.org, or go to our other website, YWCA.org. But it's a time where we want individuals, corporations, churches, schools to come together and create a dialogue and an action plan for eliminating racism. So as part of that, we put up on our website and our Facebook page a call for young girls of color to tell their stories, because this year we're focusing on young girls of color. And we're doing that because of the fact that they're often left out of conversations when it comes to the negative impacts of racism. And that's interesting, because not only do they are they impacted by racism, but they're also impacted by the intersectionality of gender. But we put out this call, and we were hoping to get letters, and we did, and we got a lot of positive support, but we got a overwhelmingly negative and some overwhelmingly negative comments by people saying things like, all lives matter. This is racist for you to just focus on young girls. And I found that to just be unbelievable, because it's clear. Young girls of color, they're 12 times more likely to be, or 12% of the time, young girls are penalized in the juvenile justice system. About 60% of young girls of color are born into families that are either at poverty or at low income levels. We don't have access to the education and the resources that other girls have. And so it just seemed odd to me that people would be disappointed that we would be focusing on young girls of
So you
color.
responded to it in a sense saying, hey, come on, guys, this
Yeah.
is ridiculous,
Yes.
which I thought, was a wonderful, a firm statement on your part that
Yeah.
said, we're doing this because of all of these things.
Absolutely.
But, it was tragic in a sense that so-called, who knows who's actually writing on social media these things, but somebody would say, so white girls don't matter? I
Yeah.
guess we just, are not a part of the equation, and it's racist and it's whatever.
Well, until we see a day where black girls are graduating at the same rates as white girls, right now there's a chasm. I mean, I think the graduation rates for black girls is about 80. I'm sorry, for white girls is about 86%. It's about 65 for young girls of color. The educational gap, the wage gap is significant. Until we see equity, I think it's perfectly okay to look at young girls of color and figure out what they need to achieve success. And at the YWCA, we will continue to do that. And again, not to the exclusion of other girls, but when you have resources, you put them in the area where there's the most need. And I can assure you, there's a tremendous amount of need for young girls of color. They are facing issues that, are unimaginable.
Well, it's so wonderful that you put your foot down and that you're in a position to do that.
That's right.
And that's what makes all the difference in the world, and that you have the support of the organization.
That's right.
Firmly committed to this. When we end our programs, which I'm so sorry we're doing, you'll have to come back. Because
I'd be honored to.
So much. We ask our guests to finish this sentence: the power, the strength of Black America lies in. How would you finish that?
Carol, I think the power, the strength of Black America lies in every American recognizing and appreciating everyone as members of one race, and that race is the human race. And then once we do that, realizing that we all must use our skills, our knowledge, our talents, and our voice to do whatever we can to eliminate racism, to empower women and girls, and really to promote peace, freedom, justice, and dignity, not just for some, but for all.
And am I so glad you're in a position to lead us in that direction. Thank you so much for being here today, Dara Richardson-Heron, and continue your good work at the YWCA. Thanks so much, Dara. And thank you all for being with us today. We will see you the next time. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America.